Good morning, everybody. I am welcome back to In Conversation with the Norwich Guide Dog Forum, which is a series I set up back in June to talk to just interesting people. We had volunteers on last time. We had Fiona Clark, who is a life coach, and more volunteers, and Stephen Bradnock from the Nancy Oldfield Trust. And this August, I had planned, but as most plans go, I had planned to have lots of businesses and lots of destinations on with good access for disabled people. But coming out of lockdown has just meant that everybody's scrabbling to get every last piece of business through the door as quickly as they possibly can. So people have been incredibly busy. So today I'm really fortunate to welcome Louise Rout from the Fairhaven Garden Centre. Welcome, Louise, who's decided to join me at a very last minute. And this has come off the back of one of our coordinators at the Norwich Guide Dog Forum, Annette Smart, visiting Louise and the Fairhaven Gardens on Monday and just saying how wonderful it was. So Louise has agreed to come on and talk about herself and the gardens and how it works for visually impaired people after lockdown. So yeah, over to you, Louise.
Well, hi, thank you for inviting me this morning. Hopefully I'll cover all the points you've got, but feel free to butt in and ask any other questions. So I've been at Fairhaven for a very long time. I started here when I was at high school, and I've sort of risen my way through the ranks. When my manager George retired 13, 14 years ago, I was very lucky to give him the chance to take on the running of the trust. And the trustees were happy with my first year, so here I am, continuing the business. It's definitely been interesting these last few months. The garden was created by the second Lord Fairhaven. He bought the estate in 1947. The house had been used as an officer's convalescence home, and the Woodland Garden that I now manage as a training ground for the Home Guard. So it was quite a jungle. He spent several years clearing all the dikes out to allow the water to flow through, taking down some of the dead and dying trees and replanting, introducing plants from all around the world. So we've got interesting plants like our candelabra primulas. There's around 50,000 of them flower at the beginning of May. Probably the best show we've ever had was this year, and I was in and I got to see them. But, I had May was very interesting. It was beautiful. Everything flowered with such intensity this year.
Yeah. I think that's what happened a lot. Yeah. I think with people having retreated into their houses and gardens, I think the wildlife out there just went, hooray!
Yeah.
Yay! Yeah. They're all indoors. It's safe.
Incredible. Yeah. And it's nice to see actually now with people starting to come back into the gardens, that actually the wildlife is still doing its thing. It's like,
that's really good to hear. Yeah, that's so good to hear.
Many butterflies this year and dragonflies. And so for those of you that have some partial sight, my cousin Emma is blind, and she actually was visiting on Monday when Annette was in, which is kind of how this started.
Yeah.
And she could see the dragonflies all flying around in the picnic area, which was really lovely. Like little fairies flying around.
Yeah. Yes, they are like fairies until you look into their faces and you go,
yes, and then they look like aliens.
I think, ooh, you got beaten.
Aliens. So the garden, it took sort of 15 years to create this beautiful, shady, moisture-loving garden. Lord Fairhaven is a very keen organic gardener. He wanted to complement what was already here. He didn't want to go around and wrestle it into something else. So we are a very wild garden. If people come here expecting something formal, water lilies and ponds, they've come to the wrong place. We are about being at one with nature, just sitting for a moment and listening to the sounds and just taking in what's in front of you. It's very relaxing and peaceful. So when we were given the opportunity to reopen the garden, a very, very important focus for me was to make sure that the garden was accessible to people, but also didn't feel threatening. They should still feel relaxed and safe when they come here. Sorry, my phone's going mad. I wanted to make sure that we still felt like Fairhaven. So we have got signage up, obviously, reminding people to give everybody space. They should be doing that anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Pointing out different routes people can take around the gardens. We know that everybody has got different walking capabilities. So we've got 3 routes. We have a short route for half an hour, a longer route for 45 minutes, and then the longest route is about an hour and a half. And that's to the consistent walking. There are benches around the garden. We took the decision that people should be allowed to sit on if that's what they were comfortable with. It should feel the same when you're in the gardens.
So what is open? Obviously, Fairhaven is it's in South Walsham. It's just up the road from where I live, actually, and well, used to do the Halloween trail there with the children when they were still a bit younger, which is hilarious, honestly. It's one of the most hysterical things I've ever attended in my life. It's just because you have lots of local volunteers that come along to that and do all the ghouls and the vampires. So I love that to bits. But how? Obviously, Fairhaven, you've got lots of different facilities. What is still in place after lockdown? What have you still got open? What is, compared to the season that you had last year, what are you offering your guests at Fairhaven at the moment?
So we're asking everybody to book in advance and half an hour time slots, so we can manage the arrival experience and give everyone the information they need. And then the garden, as I say, is put down to one-way routes, which you can then splinter off to whichever areas you like. This has given us the opportunity to actually filter everybody through our sensory garden, which, when it was planted many years ago, was designed for visually impaired people and those with limited mobility. So it has a gentle sloping path. We're gradually amending the plants that are in there because as the trees around that spot get bigger and bigger, there's less light, so we need to change what's in there. So it's more about the scented plants and the sounds rather than the colours at the moment. But as the seasons change and the tree canopy changes, we can amend that again into the woodland garden. As I said, we've got plenty of benches still, so there's no need to rush. You can take your time and just sit and read. We have various dog watering points around the gardens. Woodford's very kindly donated us some of their old barrels, so we have those in the gardens on logs with little water bowls underneath. Provided someone hasn't left the tap on, there should be plenty of water for everyone. Obviously, we top those up regularly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the bird hides aren't open this year. We haven't got the facility to put in one-way systems for that, but as things change, we hope to get those open again soon. There's some really lovely viewpoints down at the Broad. It's sad for us that we can't run the boats this year again.
Yes, because that was one of the big attractions, wasn't it? Was the boats, wasn't it? So
really good point for us that you can, one of the few places where you can get out on the water and sit from the bank all in the same spot. But it's brought benefits in that you haven't got this sort of continual flow of traffic, although it's never very busy on our Broad. It's just meaning that the wildlife there has just sort of really taken over. So we have it's not that our boats disturb them, it's that the less boat traffic on the Broads in general has meant that there's just more room for them to be. So we're finding our regular visitors are sitting in spots where they wouldn't normally, and they're noticing lots of different things.
Right.
There are benefits to this interesting time.
Oh, so many. So many.
You have to find the positives.
Yes, so many. Yeah, think positive. And no, I mean, in fairness, I have to say that the lockdown has brought as you say, a lot of the benefits have been it's been in many ways it's been a good leveling ground for a lot of things that I do in my professional capacity. It's the fact that I can't drive now no longer seems to be an issue because we can all meet on Zoom, which is and so I've got good Wi-Fi, so hence, I've got the Jaguar, which is great. But there are, there are, coming out of lockdown, there have obviously been a lot of disbenefits, and I think visually impaired people are particularly struggling with some of the social distancing and separation measures that are being put out in businesses, like the perspex panels, like oh God, don't get me started on the pavement licensing, etc., etc., and the fact that shops have one-way systems, which if you can see is great, but when they're just sectioned off with bits of rope, if you know how guide dogs you're trained, you will understand that anything above dog height, eye level, unless you have a really, really, really experienced and good dog who can manage obstacles like that, they simply don't exist. So you will get dragged into ropes. So there's all sorts of things that businesses out there really need to think about, and it often takes just one not terribly nice experience to put you off going out altogether. And also our dogs aren't trained to socially distance. They simply don't understand the concept, full stop. It's it's why it was never built into their training. They're sociable, friendly dogs. It just doesn't exist in their world. It's just dogs just don't understand that. So a lot of the times we're coming a cropper because before it was just like, but please don't touch my dog, and that's like, please don't touch my dog because there's a risk of transmission, and now it's
It's a whole new world, isn't it?
It is a whole new world, and it's good to know that there are still places out there like Fairhaven where we can be back to normal, where the environment hasn't altered to beyond recognition. So
try to keep it very much Fairhaven, and for us, I know it's an inconvenience to people booking in, but it means that we can make those controls and measures without imposing additional things. We're naturally spacing people out. So in theory, you shouldn't be faced with these, oh my goodness me, this person's going to do this or that person's going to do that. It should be naturally that everybody is able to wander freely and feel comfortable. That's really important to me.
And is this an online booking system, Louise? Is this found on your website? Because I will, once we're done, I'll post your website as a link underneath this conversation. So is that a page on your website?
Yes, if you go onto our website, there's various places informing you need to book in advance. Obviously, not everybody sees the obvious, but we try to make sure that it is there in various formats, written in the text, because we know some people have the speaking text things for them, and others are visual images. I try to use appropriate colours and things because we all see things differently. One of our chaps here is colourblind, so I test things on him. I don't see the obvious, so if I can't see it, then someone else has to test it. So differently. And I've tried to make sure that all our different versions of ourselves are catered for without it being too confusing. Try to make it simple. There's a list on our website as well, which tells you the things that are open, the things that are closed. You should have a fair idea of what to expect. We have a map on there as well, which you can download, showing you the routes. It also points out where the dog bins are, where the benches are, things like that. And everything pretty much stays in the garden until you come back up to the top, and then you go into the picnic area. We've kept the tea room closed, inside seating area.
Oh, that's sad. I'm devastated. I didn't hear that.
Our outside area is open, so you can.
That's fantastic.
You can still get your scones and coffee.
I know. I was starting to get anxious there.
Well, when we were closed, we turned the tea room over to a grocery store. The village shop closed several years ago, and we had all the stock in the tea room, and I wasn't going to let it go to waste, so we started the grocery.
Oh, is that what you did? Oh my goodness, brilliant, Louise! Wow.
Sitting still.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So we've kept that going because it's churlish to stop it just because there's other things that are going on now. We're not using the inside space for seating because we'd only get 4 tables in, and it's just. You just wouldn't feel the same, so we're just parking that for now, keeping the shop going, and then we've opened up the outside picnic area to make it a bigger place.
Yeah, and the outside area is lovely, and there's plenty of it, isn't it? Especially on a day like today, which is just absolutely beautiful. It's yeah, it should be really amazing. So, okay. Right. Well, lovely. Thank you, Louise. I won't keep you any longer because I know you're really busy. And as you said, you're normally out and you take these calls on your phone with the phone in your pocket while you carry on gardening. So I won't keep you any longer. But I'm so grateful to you for coming on. And I'll post all the links to the website for anybody who wants to come and see you, because it is an absolutely glorious garden. And there's shady bits and there's sunny bits and there's picnic areas, and it's just a really, really nice way to spend a few hours. Yeah, as yeah, especially on days like today. So get out of the the chaos that can be trying to get through a city centre, as I discovered yesterday. Oh my goodness, I think it's the unknown as well. It's that you just don't know what you're going to be confronted with on just simply picking up a coffee from somewhere just ends up getting wound up in so much red tape. Really, what has happened to life? So, have you got a track and trace thing in place, or is that
partly by the fact that everybody has to book, that just deals with that straight away. So we know in a day exactly who's on site. Again, I've tried to deal with all the things that we have to do, because as a business we have requirements, regulations and statute things we have to do, whereas the consumer has guidelines. So we have things we have to do, and the things that the public can choose to do or not. So we've tried to take the thinking out of it and just naturally achieve all the things that we need to do. So hopefully
yes.
get it right.
Yeah, of what I've heard, you've done really well. So, right, okay, right. I'm going to bid you goodbye, Louise. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes because I've got a couple of things that I want to chat about. But yeah, good luck with it all, and hopefully you have a really successful season that then takes you through the year next year. So yeah, and thank you for what you do. Really grateful.
Cheers,
so, right, bye.
Bye.
Right. Oh my goodness. Thank you to Louise for doing that. That was just amazing. I just wanted to keep you on just for a few seconds more because this Friday, Norwich Guide Dog Forum is hosting our In Touch forum that we share with other guide dog forums in East Anglia. So this Friday at 11 o'clock, it's our turn to host, and we have back Stephen Bradnock from the Nancy Oldfield Trust, who's coming back to talk to us. And we're hopefully going to discuss a few other issues that have cropped up over the last couple of weeks, notably the issue of the new legislation surrounding pavement licensing. Now, pavement licensing is not new. You will all know that any business that wants to have an outside seating area has to apply for a license, and that process used to take the consultation period used to take several weeks before an officer or a committee decided on, whether the license should be granted or not, depending on which local authority area you live in. Now, in order to support businesses generally, the government has expedited that process. So now businesses who want to have outside seating areas, because let's be honest, we'd probably all prefer to be doing business and trading outdoors rather than going into enclosed spaces where infection is possibly going to be problematic. Obviously, but we're probably all more comfortable outside in the open air. However, the process has been expedited. So from the date of when the license application is submitted to when it has to be granted, either by the local authority or by default, is 5 days, which comes up with all sorts of issues. Now, in the Equalities Impact Assessment that was done at Broadland District Council, and specifically the council that I'm a councillor at, the Equalities Impact Assessment identified a couple of risks. One was to do with antisocial behaviour. So to mitigate that, one of the consultees within those 5 days is going to be the police, which are pretty much an in-house part of the team. And the other issue that was identified was the impact on visually impaired people, for which there was no direct mitigation. because it's almost impossible, because wherever these crop up, there won't be a specific visually impaired lobby group or organisation who can make sensible comment within the really short timescales that the license requirements and the law requires the license to be granted in. So I, at the council meeting last week, gained assurances from the director of place, who is responsible for these licenses at Broadland, to make sure that, for starters, part of the regs is that a design and access statement has to be submitted whenever a license application is made. But secondly, if you find, particularly in the Broadland area, because I know that's where I can give you assurances, if you find that, you know, tables and chairs appear outside of a business where they weren't previously, but the setup is causing you problems as a visually impaired person or a disabled person, if that setup is causing you problems, then please report that as soon as you possibly can to Broadland District Council, because they will then be able to review the licence and make any amendments to it if it's problematic. I mean, obviously we're hoping that none of them will be, and the design and access statement will be, you know, of sufficient quality to make sure there aren't any problems. But if you do find them, then please let the council know. I suspect similar will be in Norwich City Council in South Norfolk and Breckland and North Norfolk, but it's important that these things are reported as soon as possible. You know, this is one of the things that we'll be talking about on Friday in the In Touch forum. So if you're interested in making any representations of that, if you've got any views, if you've come across, you know, as I talked to Louise earlier, if you have found that getting out and about has changed so dramatically that it's causing issues, let us know, because, you know, from the guide dog forums, we can then feed these issues back to the campaigns team at Guide Dogs and hopefully address as many of the problems as we possibly can, because I suppose in a way, in the rush to get the economy back on its feet and everybody trading in some shape or form, I sometimes feel the baby can be thrown out with the bathwater, and measures put in place that aren't necessarily sympathetic to all of us who, you know, just can't join in the mainstream. You know, that it just happens. So let us know. Also, next week I'll have on In Conversation, I will have Jerome Mayhew, who is the Member of Parliament for Broadland. He was newly elected in 2019, and he's very kindly agreed to come on and join us and answer any questions. So if you have any questions for the Broadland Member of Parliament, again, to do with, you know, lockdown, or I think specifically visually impaired related issues would be helpful as questions in advance, so that he can prepare any answers. You know, you're more than welcome to either post them to the Guide Dog Forum or in the comment section underneath this post. But yeah, get involved. I mean, Jerome is really keen to meet you all, and it would be just lovely to, you know, to get as many questions in as possible, so he can address as many things that are troubling you at the moment. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And it's a bit, getting Louise on was a bit last minute. As I said, my plan for who I was going to have on in August collapsed slightly, as everybody is struggling to make ends meet and make the most of the sunshine with their businesses. But back on track now, and I will see you next week. If I don't see you on Friday at the In Touch forum, I will see you next week with Jerome Mayhew MP. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I will, see you somewhere. So thank you.